strongly around affordable housing, a big issue in our country right now. So there are a number of things on day one.
What about you?
Well, I'm excited about this agenda, too. As I said, the idea of inspiring America to what can be. And I think many of these things that the vice president's proposing are things that we share in values. And the child tax credit is one we know that reduces childhood poverty by a third. We did it in Minnesota. To have a federal partner in this, unbelievable, I think, in the impact that we can make.
You talked about, you call it the opportunity economy. You are well aware that right now many Americans are struggling. There's a crisis of affordability. One of your campaign themes is we're not going back. But I wonder what you say to voters who do want to go back when it comes to the economy specifically, because their groceries were less expensive, housing was more affordable when Donald Trump was president.
Well, let's start with the fact that when Joe Biden and I came in office, during the height of a pandemic, we saw over 10 million jobs were lost. Literally, we were all tracking the numbers. Hundreds of people a day were dying because of COVID. The economy had crashed. In large part, all of that because of mismanagement by Donald Trump of that crisis. When we came in, our highest priority was to do what we could to rescue America. And today, we know that we have inflation at under 3%. A lot of our policies have led to the reality that America recovered faster than any wealthy nation around the world. But you are right. Prices, in particular for groceries, are still too high. The American people know it, I know it. Which is why my agenda includes what we need to do to bring down the price of groceries. For example, dealing with an issue like price gouging. What we need to do to extend the child tax credit to help young families be able to take care of their children in their most formative years. What we need to do to bring down the cost of housing. My proposal includes what would be a tax credit of $25,000 for first-time home buyers, so they can just have enough to put a down payment on a home, which is part of the American dream and their aspiration, but do it in a way that allows them to actually get on the path to achieving that goal and that dream.
So you have been vice president for 3.5 years. Yeah. The steps that you're talking about now, why haven't you done them already?
Well, first of all, we had to recover as an economy, and we have done that. I'm very proud of the work that we have.
Oh, man.
Done that has brought inflation down to less than 3%. The work that we have done to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors. Donald Trump said he was going to do a number of things, including allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. Never happened. We did it. So now, as I travel in the state of Georgia and around our country, the number of seniors that have benefited, I was in Nevada recently, a grandmother who showed me her receipts. And before we capped the cost of insulin for seniors at $35 a month, she was paying hundreds of dollars, up to thousands of dollars a month for her insulin. She's not doing that any longer.
You maintain Bidenomics is a success.
I maintain that when we do the work of bringing down prescription medication for the American people, including capping the cost of the annual cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000, when we do what we did in the first year of being in office to extend the child tax credit so that we cut child poverty in America by over 50%, when we do what we have done to invest in the American people and bringing manufacturing back to the United States so that we created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, bringing business back to America. What we have done to improve the supply chain so we're not relying on foreign governments to supply American families with their basic needs, I'll say that that's good work. There's more to do, but that's good work.
I want to get some clarity on where you stand.
She didn't really answer the question, guys. She didn't fully answer the question. Dana said, why haven't you done that now? Like the price gouging, they can do that right now. That's something that Richard Nixon did. I want to remind everybody, Richard Nixon did do that. So she didn't really answer the question, and she got a little bit of a tune. She got a little bit of a tune.
On some key policy issues. Energy is a big one. When you were in Congress, you supported the Green New Deal. And in 2019, you said, quote, "There is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking." Fracking, as you know, is a pretty big issue, particularly in your must-win state of Pennsylvania.
Sure.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020. that
Told
I
you.
would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
In
So how are you supporting the Green New Deal? Hello, somebody, anybody in the back? How are you supporting the Green New Deal, but you don't want to ban fracking? You guys see this? Guys, she's doing what Obama did. She's trying to run further to the right so that she can appeal to Republicans as well. Everybody wake up. I'm telling you, watch. That's why I said don't call her progressive.
2019, I believe, in a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward.
She lying. First lie of the night, guys. First lie of the interview I caught so far. No, there are video footage. We showed it on this show. Go find the video when I covered it on this channel. When she was running in 2020, she said, yes, we will ban fracking. Then she changed her position on it. Same thing she did for Medicare for all. So she already lying. We not even what? We 15 minutes in? Not even 15 minutes in. Let's continue.
I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
What made you change that position at the time?
Well, let's be clear. My values have not changed.
Lies.
I believe it is very important that we take seriously what we must do to guard against what is a clear crisis in terms of the climate. And to do that, we can do what we have accomplished thus far. The Inflation Reduction Act, what we have done to invest, by my calculation, over probably $1 trillion over the next 10 years, investing in a clean energy economy. What we've already done, creating over 300,000 new clean energy jobs. That tells me, from my experience as vice president, we can do it without banning fracking. In fact, Dana.
No, Kamala. I'm sorry. Anyone who has actually read about a Green New Deal, you know what a Green New Deal stands for. That is false. That is false information. Kamala Harris is already lying to you about climate. So for all the people that, if you consider yourself to be a progressive or a socialist, etc., Marxist, and you really care about climate change, let's say you're not even a progressive, but you care about climate, she is lying to you about climate. She is lying to you about fracking. She already lied and said she didn't. She's saying her position never changed. Her position did change. So you see what you're going to get with Kamala Harris, right? Okay. I don't even think Dana's being too harsh, and she's already lying.
Dana, excuse me. I cast the tie-breaking vote that actually increased leases for fracking as vice president. So I'm very clear about where I stand.
And was there some policy or scientific data that you saw that you said, oh, okay, I get it now?
What I have seen is that we can grow and we can increase a thriving clean energy economy without banning fracking.
Okay. Another issue, big one, is immigration. As vice president, you were tasked with addressing the root causes of migration in southern countries and
northern part of Central America.
The northern part of Central America.
Notice what Dana just did here. I don't want to interrupt too much, but Dana starts off this question by letting everybody know you were assigned to the border, and Kamala agreed to it. So let's see how she responds to this.
Deals with that affects the southern border of the U.S. Mm-hmm. During the Biden-Harris administration, there were record numbers of illegal border crossings. Why did the Biden-Harris administration wait 3.5 years to implement sweeping asylum restrictions?
Well, first of all, the root causes work that I did as vice president, that I was asked to do by the president, has actually resulted in a number of benefits, including historic investments by American businesses in that region. The number of immigrants coming from that region has actually reduced since we began that work. But I will say this, that Joe Biden and I and our administration worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration issue that is very significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border. Mm-hmm. And through bipartisan work, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, a bill was crafted, which we supported, which I support. And Donald Trump got word of this bill that would have contributed to securing our border. And because he believes that it would not have helped him politically, he told his folks in Congress don't put it forward. He killed the bill. A border security bill that would have put 1,500 more agents on the border. And let me tell you something, the Border Patrol endorsed the bill. And I'm sure in large part because they knew they were working around the clock and 1,500 more agents would help them. That bill.
Pause. Why wasn't that put forward when Democrats had the House? Why didn't they bring that up when Democrats had the majority in the House? Why did you bring that up and wait until Republicans had the majority in the House and then you decided to bring up that bill? See, Obama did this too. This is why I'm not stupid. Obama did this too when it came to codifying Roe v. Wade. Remember, Obama had the House and, well, technically the Senate, his first 2 years when he was in office. And remember, Obama waited until Republicans got control of the House. And then he's like, oh, let's try to pass things now. So I wasn't born yesterday.
Bill would have allowed us to increase seizures of fentanyl. Ask any community in America that has been devastated by fentanyl what passing that bill would have done to address their concern and a pain that they've experienced.
So you would push that legislation again. I just want to ask
about. Not only push it, I will make sure that it comes to my desk and I would sign it.
Just one other question about something that you said in 2019 when you first ran. There was a debate. You raised your hand when asked whether or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have to be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally, and there should be consequence. And let's be clear, in this race, I'm the only person who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations who traffic in guns, drugs, and human beings. I'm the only person in this race who actually served a border state as Attorney General to enforce our laws, and I would enforce our laws as president going forward. I recognize the problem.
Generally speaking, how should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter, to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set goals for the United States of America and by extension the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. As an example, that value has not changed. My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California, prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed. So that is the reality of it. In 4 years of being vice president.
We're going to pause here for a second. Guys, she flip-flopped on fracking. She flip-flopped on Medicare for all. And she's also flip-flopping on the border too. I covered this, that she was moving differently on the border and stuff like this. But according to Kamala Harris, she's saying that her values did not change. No, they did. They did. Just admit it. And you got Tim there sitting next to you. I don't know if he's supposed to be a sidekick, a flunky. I don't know if he's supposed to be like your emotional, like teddy bear. I don't know what's happening with Tim, okay? Tim does look very huggable. I will say that. Like if you see Tim walking down the street, he looked like that's someone you can go up to and just give a big old giant hug. I'll give Tim that. But it almost kind of seems like Tim needed to be there with you because you couldn't do this interview on your own and perform in a way that corporate media would not ridicule you about the next day. I'll get into that a little bit more about the need to have Tim next to her. And what if Obama would have done that when he was running, if he had Biden next to him?
I'll tell you, one of the aspects to your point is traveling the country extensively. I mean, I'm here in Georgia. I think somebody told me 17 times since I've been vice president in Georgia alone. I believe it is important to build consensus, and it is important to find a common place of understanding of where we can actually solve problems.
On that note, you had a lot of Republican speakers at the convention. Will you appoint a Republican to your cabinet?
Yes, I would.
Anyone in mind?
No.
Everybody hear this? Okay. Everybody now, all of you who are still calling her progressive, stop calling Kamala Harris progressive. So here she goes. Would you appoint a Republican to your cabinet? I think I would. Does that sound familiar to you? Don't you remember when Barack Obama said in that interview that he was basically more like a moderate Republican? You guys, people out there thinking, seriously, progressives are out there thinking they're about to get like the next like great progressive female version of Bernie Sanders. Some people even said Kamala would be to the left of Bernie Sanders. And here she is telling you she would appoint a Republican in her cabinet. Now, what does that mean, folks? That means she is not going to run a progressive agenda. She is going to run in the center, which is what I've tried to warn people about. That's why she moved to the right on some things and to the left on other things. So that put those together, that puts you right in the center. Center. Let's continue.
No one in particular in mind. We got 68 days to go with this election, so I'm not putting the cart before the horse, but I would. I think it's really important. I have spent my career inviting diversity of opinion. I think it's important to have people at the table when some of the most important decisions are being made that have different views, different experiences. And I think it would be to the benefit of the American public to have a member of my cabinet who was a Republican.
No socialists, though. You want to have people of different political ideologies, but you damn sure ain't gonna have no socialists be a part of that cabinet.
That was just the start of our wide-ranging conversation, and we have some never-before-shared details about the phone call that changed everything between President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris.
I'm just curious, staying on President Biden, when he called you and said he was pulling out of the race, what was that like? And did he offer to endorse you right away, or did you ask for it?
It was a Sunday, so here, I'll give you a little too much information.
Go for it. There's no such thing, Madam Vice President.
And her running mate. I asked him about some of the controversies that have sprung up since Harris put him on the ticket.
Governor Walz, the country is just starting to get to know you. I want to ask you a question about how you've described your service in the National Guard. You said that you carried weapons in war, but you have never deployed actually in a war zone. A campaign official said that you misspoke. Did you?
Okay. So we will come back. Let me put the volume on mute there and let's chat for a little bit before the interview comes back. So far, we've already seen a couple of lies. And so far we have, let me address this, Paul said, I thought it was live. Apparently not, because I saw one question that was already leaked on Twitter earlier today from this interview, which showed me that this interview of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz was recorded and they're airing it as a live on CNN. Now, some of you may wonder this question. Well, then what does that mean? It could mean that she already had these questions prior to the interview. Just like when Joe Biden interviewed with George Stephanopoulos, same thing. It was recorded, but they premiered it as a live. So this interview happened earlier today. They're on the road in Georgia campaigning there. But no, they're not live with Dana right now. We'll come back to it because I'll show you here. See, this is how I knew this question right here. This was posted earlier today on CNN. Harris explains in the first interview as a Democratic nominee why her positions on key issues changed. This was posted 4 hours ago. So that's how I knew it was not going to be an actual live interview. They recorded earlier with her. Now, let's talk about this female thing. I think it is a mistake for Kamala Harris to have Tim Walz by her side in the first interview that she does as a presidential candidate. I'm not saying he couldn't join her in another interview, but for the first one, it should have just been her, because what it does, it sends a message to the public that you don't feel comfortable or you're not confident enough with the way you're going to answer. You're not confident enough with your candidacy that you can sit at that table with Dana Bash by yourself and hold your own. And that says something. When Elizabeth Warren was running for president, Elizabeth Warren, her first interview she did by herself. Later on, she did an interview with her husband. And granted, she didn't become the Dem nominee, but you get the point that I'm making. Considering the fact that Kamala Harris has already had interviews in the past during the Biden administration that have not gone well, and the press has criticized the next day, I think it was a mistake for her to have Tim Walz next to her. This should have been Kamala's moment to prove to Americans that she can stand on her own. You're running for president of the United States. You want to convince the people and let the people know that they should trust you and that you have it all in your hands and you can handle it, not only as a candidate, but as a woman. Because what it looks like now is that you need to have this man by your side in order for you to answer basic questions from an interview, which you should be able to do by your damn self. Now, we know not everyone is a great interviewer. Not everyone is good at interviews, but you need to practice to get better at it. And it's very obvious to me what this was all about. He's kind of there as like the comfort buddy to make her feel a little bit more confident. And I'm here to tell you that, especially like as a woman, the number of times people told me the first year when I started this show that I should have a male co-host, that I shouldn't do it by myself, as if I can't. I said, no, I think I can do it by myself. I think I'm strong enough. I think I'm confident enough to do it by myself. And I'll make mistakes along the way, but that's okay. That's how you grow and that's how you learn. So for all women out there, Kamala, especially since I know you pro girl power, for all women out there, you should be able to handle this on your own. So me looking at this, I'm just kind of like, you had to have him with you? You couldn't do this on your own? Let's go back in.
She will make their lives better. She heard that here at Sandfly Barbecue in Savannah.
What we're going to do to increase access to capital for small businesses, I'll be rolling out next week. Part of what we're going to be doing in terms of a tax credit.
On the trail, she talks about her experience, years in the courtroom as a district attorney and eventually California's attorney general. She wants to reframe the contest as the prosecutor versus the felon.
I know Donald Trump's type. I've been dealing with them my whole career.
The former president is turning to a well-defined playbook of personal attacks.
I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
And in just 12 days, the nominees will meet face-to-face for the first time.
She's not a good debater. She's not a smart person. She doesn't want to debate.
If you've got something to say,
I want to ask you about your opponent, Donald Trump.
Okay.
I was a little bit surprised. People might be surprised to hear that you have never interacted with him, met him face to face. That's going to change soon. But what I want to ask you about is what he said last month. He suggested that you happened to turn black recently for political purposes, questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah.
Any?
Same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
That's it?
Yeah,
That's it.
she don't.
Okay.
Yeah. She don't really want to talk about that because, again, when people say that she's not black, they mean she's not Black American. Black Americans are an ethnic group, which I am a part of. Kamala Harris is not. Her father is Jamaican, from Jamaica. Her mother is from India. Black Americans are American descendants of slavery. So Kamala Harris is not a Black American. That's why she don't want to talk about it. That's why she said next question. She know.
Let's talk about some foreign policy issues that would be on your plate if you become commander in chief. President Biden has tried unsuccessfully to end the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. He's been doing it for months and months, along with you. Would you do anything differently? For example, would you withhold some U.S. weapons shipments to Israel? That's what a lot of people on the progressive left want you to do.
Uh-oh.
Let me be very clear. I'm unequivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense and its ability to defend itself. And that's not going to change. But let's take a step back. October 7, 1,200 people were massacred. Many young people who were simply attending a music festival.
Pause. So let me rephrase what she just said when she goes, well, I'm unequivocally and unwavering with my support for Israel, and that's not going to change. So her way of answering Dana's question, that's her way of saying, no, she is not going to condition aid to Israel. She is not going to withhold any weapons or aid to Israel. Does everybody understand that? Will everyone please pass that on? I hope this interview wakes everybody the hell up who's sitting back there thinking that she is going to condition aid and weapons to Israel. She is not. Notice how she answers the question. Kamala Harris isn't stupid. She knows what she's doing. So whatever she said to the uncommitted members in a private meeting where they said that she told them that she was open to it, I told you, don't pay attention to what she supposedly says privately. Pay attention to what she says publicly. That was a lie. She lied to them to shut them up, and they endorsed her anyway. And she wouldn't even let a Palestinian American speak at the DNC convention on the stage. She played you like fools.
Women were horribly raped.
Here we go.
As
again.
I said then, I say today, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. And we have got to get a deal done. We were in Doha. We have to get a deal done. This war must end.
And in the meantime,
and we must get a deal that is about getting the hostages out. I've met with the families of the American hostages. Let's get the hostages out. Let's get the ceasefire done.
but no change in policy in terms of arms and so forth.
No, we have to get a deal done.
Everybody heard that, right? She told you no. She told you no. Uncommitted movement. She said no.
Dana, we have to get a deal done. When you look at the significance of this to the families, to the people who are living in that region, a deal is not only the right thing to do to end this war, but will unlock so much of what must happen next. I remain committed since I've been on October 8th to what we must do to work toward a two-state solution, where Israel is secure and in equal measure, the Palestinians have security and self-determination and dignity.
Governor Walz, the country is just starting to get to know you. I want to ask you a question about how you've described your service in the National Guard. You said that you carried weapons in war, but you have never deployed actually in a war zone. A campaign official said that you misspoke. Did you?
Well, first of all, I'm incredibly proud. I've done 24 years of wearing the uniform of this country. Equally proud of my service in a public school classroom, whether it's Congress or the governor. My record speaks for itself, but I think people are coming to get to know me. I speak like they do. I speak candidly. I wear my emotions on my sleeves, and I speak especially passionately about about our children being shot in schools and around guns. So I think people know me. They know who I am. They know where my heart is. And again, my record has been out there for over 40 years to speak for itself.
And the idea that you said that you were in war, did you misspeak as the campaign has said?
Yeah, I said we were talking about, in this case, this was after a school shooting, the ideas of carrying these weapons of war. And my wife, the English teacher, told me my grammar is not always correct. But again, if it's not this, it's an attack on my children for showing love for me, or it's an attack on my dog. I'm not going to do that. And the one thing I'll never do is I'll never demean another member's service in any way. I never have, and I never will.
I just one other question, because again, this is all new.
Yeah.
I mean, this was not, however many days ago, this was not on either of your bingo cards, especially yours. You had to clarify that you had said that you and your wife used IVF, but it turned out you used a different kind of fertility in order to have children. And then when you ran for Congress in 2006, your campaign repeatedly made false statements about a 1995 arrest for drunk and reckless driving. What do you say to voters who aren't sure whether they can take you at your word?
Well, I've been very public. I think they can see my students come out, former folks I've served with, and they vouch for me. I certainly own my mistakes when I make them. The one thing I'll tell you is I wished in this country wouldn't have to do this. I spoke about our infertility issues because it's hell, and families know this. And I spoke about the treatments that were available to us that had those beautiful children there. That's quite a contrast in folks that are trying to take those rights away from us. And so I think people know who I am. They know that record. They've seen that. I've taught thousands of students. I've been out there. And I won't apologize for speaking passionately, whether it's guns in schools or protecting of reproductive rights. The contrast could not be clearer between what we're running against. The vice president's position on this has been clear. And I think most Americans get it if you've been through that. I don't think they're cutting hairs on IVF or IUI. I think what they're cutting hairs on is an abortion ban and the ability to be able to deny families the chance to have a beautiful child.
So I see he told some lies too, huh? So we got liar and liar.
Up next, the moment that changed everything when Kamala Harris got a phone call from President Biden that he was dropping out of the race.
It was a Sunday, so here I'll give you a little too much information.
Go for it. There's no such thing, Madam Vice President.
My family was staying with us, and including my baby nieces.
Speaking of those baby nieces, the vice president also opens up about a viral picture from the convention that meant so much to so many. And Tim Walz talks about that convention moment with his son that brought many viewers to tears.
You were speaking, the camera caught him, so incredibly proud of you, so emotional, saying, "That's my dad."
Yeah, I don't know as a father I could have ever imagined that.
Yeah, one thing I will say is this: Tim Waltz's son does have a condition. So I know some people online were like, "Why is he behaving that way?" He does have a condition, so just keep that in mind. But I will say this: there's been a number of lies that have been told, but one that continues to remain the same when it comes to sending arms and weapons to Israel is that Kamala Harris gave the same statement here that she gave on the DNC stage during her speech. So for those of you that are, passionate about the Gaza issue as I am, I'm here to tell you now, here's what you need to do. You need to come out in mass and you need to vote for Jill Stein. If you want to vote against genocide, you need to come out in mass and vote for Jill Stein. Screw Kamala Harris. She's letting you know. We can come back to this in just a second because I do want to show you this. This is the Abandon Harris campaign. It says a reckoning is coming on November 5th, and we won't shy away from taking credit. We want the Democrats to know it was us. And they are retweeting this tweet here from Gay Barista, Paul for President, says, rumor has it the Harris-Walz campaign internal polls have them losing all the swing states. So that's interesting. I'll get into polling a little bit later when we get to the Cornel West story, because that's connected to that. But the reason why you're not hearing corporate media talk about abandoned Harris campaign and they're talking about the uncommitted campaign is because the abandoned Harris campaign did what the uncommitted movement should have done. They did not endorse Kamala Harris. It was abandon Biden. When it became Kamala, they went to abandon Harris. So you don't have to vote for that. You can vote for Jill Stein. I will be voting for Jill Stein. I'm not voting for Kamala Harris. I'm not voting for Donald Trump. Like this, I'm sorry, this is ridiculous. Let's go to some of the comments while we wait for them to come back from break. Thank you, Cynical. I got to grab a drink for this cop and flop BS. What's up, Michael? Do you think she was pre-fed the question, Sabby? Yeah. Thank you, Samantha. It's relatively nice that costs are going up more slowly than they were a year ago, but it's still going up. And they are going up over the costs we were paying last year, which were already high. I agree with you. Ashura says she's fucked. She lost Pennsylvania. We're going to knock because YouTube might hear that and take that differently. Thank you, New York Varsity Sports. My degree is in theater performance, Sabs. This was rehearsed. I am 99.9% confident that she got these questions ahead of time. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. S. Khan says fracking is bad for the environment. Yes. Tell Kamala, S. Khan. Tell Kamala this. How you support a Green New Deal and you're pro fracking? That's not part of the Green New Deal. Shout out to Fred Hosea for becoming a Sabby member. What's up, Fred? Natalie, Sabby, Democrats had 50 years to codify Roe v. Wade. Yes, you are correct. Be easy. Does DNC stand for do not come? Thank you, Cynical. She will uphold the law. What? The Leahy law. Thank you, Todd. Pre-recorded and likely edited to look better. Just saying. Thanks, Roger. Anyone in Georgia ask her where them $2,000 checks are that Joe promised? They should be asking that question. Thank you, none of your business. Her father is Jamaican, not black. Jamaica is a country. Thank you, none of your business. I see someone gets it. LPA Film says hashtag Jill Stein 2024. Thank you, Roger. Hoping interview wakes him up. It might put him to sleep. Thanks, trusting success. The uncommitted movement will still make excuses for her after this. Yeah, because like 2 of them are DNC delegates. It's really sad, actually. It's really sad to put that. They still want to be a part of the club. They still want to be able to, go to the DNC conventions and all that kind of stuff. Like, to me, it just makes no sense, right? Thank you, baby Ethernet. Ceasefire means you stop sending the bombs. Right. Thank you, Chris. To the uncommitted movement, what more will it take for you all to permanently abandon this abusive relationship? You all deserve better. That's why I'm voting for Jill Stein. Give it up for Chris. Give it up for Chris in the chat. All right. Thank you, Cool Daddy Smooth. Why is there a commercial on a pre-recorded interview that is scripted and we are not getting real explanations on policies? No, and there are still no policies on Kamala Harris's website. We've been checking every day. Thank you, Phyllis. Jill Stein 2024. Thank you, Sabby Sabs, for all you do. And thank you, Troy. Harris housing assistance for undocumented equals what we could be using for reparations, showcasing it can be done. Thank you. And we're going to go back into the interview.
Extraordinarily strong. Given where we are now, do you have any regrets about what you told the American people?
No, not at all. Not at all. I have served with President Biden for almost 4 years now, and I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest honors of my career, truly. He cares so deeply about the American people. He is so smart and loyal to the American people. And I have spent hours upon hours with him, be it in the Oval Office or the Situation Room. He has the intelligence, the commitment, and the judgment and disposition that I think the American people rightly deserve in their president. By contrast, the former president has none of that. And so, one, I am so proud to have served as vice president to Joe Biden. And two, I'm so proud to be running with Tim Walz for president of the United States and to bring America what I believe the American people deserve, which is a new way forward, and turn the page on the last decade of what I believe has been contrary to where the spirit of our country really lies.
With the last decade.
Turn the page. Here I am on the road again. Here I am. Turn the page. I think that's how that song goes.
Of course, the last 3.5 years has been part of your administration.
I'm talking about an era that started about a decade ago, where there is some suggestion, warped, I believe it to be, that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down, instead of where I believe most Americans are, which is to believe that the true measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up. That's what's at stake as much as any other detail that we could discuss in this election.
Because we haven't had a chance to talk, I'm just curious, staying on President Biden, when he called you and said he was pulling out of the race, what was that like? And did he offer to endorse you right away, or did you ask for it?
It was a Sunday, so here, I'll give you a little too much information.
Go for it. There's no such thing, Madam Vice President.
My family was staying with us, and including my baby nieces, and we had just had pancakes and, Auntie, can I have more bacon? Yes, I'll make you more bacon. And then we were sitting down to do a puzzle. And the phone rang, and it was Joe Biden. And he told me what he had decided to do. And I asked him, "Are you sure?" And he said yes. And that's how I learned about it.
And what about the endorsement? Did you ask for it?
He was very clear that he was going to support me.
So when he called to tell you, he said, "I'm pulling out of the race and I'm going to support you."
Well, my first thought was not about me, to be honest with you. My first thought was about him, to be honest.
She lying. She lying. Come on, you're the vice president, and the president calls you and says they're pulling out of the race, and your first thought is, my first thought is about him, not about me. She lying. Come on, that's just human nature. Of course, you would have thought about, oh, is it my turn?
I think history is going to show a number of things about Joe Biden's presidency. I think history is going to show that in so many ways it was transformative, be it on what we have accomplished around finally investing in America's infrastructure, investing in new economies, in new industries, what we have done to bring our allies back together and have confidence in who we are as America and grow that alliance, what we have done to stand true to our principles, including the one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I think history is going to show not only has Joe Biden led an administration that has achieved those extraordinary successes, but the character of the man is one that he has been in his life and career, including as a president, quite selfless and puts the American people first.
Did he put the American people first when you called him out on the debate stage, when you said that little girl was you, when you talked about how he agreed with busing, or he was, arguing about busing? Did he put Americans first then, Kamala? Was he selfless then?
Political minds in the business. Abby?
We have them all here. Dana, you've given us a lot to chew on. Our hats off to you. Thank you very much. Stick around, though. We will make sure to come back to you throughout the next hour. I want to get in the room here to get some initial reactions with our great panel. David Axelrod, let's start with you. What did you make of how Vice President Harris did she meet the moment?
Yeah, I think she did what she needed to do. What she needed to do was be the same person that people have seen on the stage for the last month, and have seen a new sense of sort of confidence, of calm and comfortable comfort that we haven't seen before from her. We didn't see certainly the last time she ran. She was very connected to her word. She seemed strong. She seemed competent. She seemed like someone who could be president of the United States. That was the first test. One thing, because I know we got a lot of opinions here.
We have time for yours, don't worry.
But, I think well, two things then. I think that she handled the issue of her changes or perceived changes in policy pretty well. I mean, I think the idea that her values have been the same and have been consistent was a good bridge there. One thing that I want to note is we were asking the question earlier, how will she handle the president and will she separate herself from the president? And there might be some political logic to doing that. She's talking about turning the page. Does she want to be a continuation? That's what the Republicans will want to make her out to be. I'll give Scott the opportunity to do it in a second. But as she spoke, I thought it showed a certain character, the way she talked about Joe Biden. She didn't run away from him. She gave him, I think, his due. She understands that there's some political risk to that. That actually was elevating to me in a way that I hadn't expected. So I think on the whole, this was a good night. It wasn't I don't think she moved the ball that much forward, but she certainly didn't fall back.
The do no harm principle.
So listen, ladies and gentlemen, remember, David Axelrod comes from the Obama administration. He was advisor to Obama. Let's keep it real, guys. If it seemed like she was more confident, it's because Tim Walz was right there beside her. So again, what does this say? And I'm talking to the women right now for a second. What does it say to young women and young girls, since that's what Democrats want to talk about, first woman? What message does this send to the young women that you have to have a guy next to you in order for people to take you seriously or in order for you to feel confident? What does that say to people? The best thing she could have done, because Tim Walz got maybe 2 questions from Dana Bash. The best thing that Kamala Harris could have done for herself and for her candidacy is to do this interview with Dana by herself and stand on her own 2 feet. She couldn't do it. She had to have Tim next to her to feel comfortable. And I can understand if that interview was going back and forth between her and Tim, but Dana was asking her, Tim, like 2 questions. Tim, did you serve and did you fight in the war? And what about these fertility treatments? Was that even necessary? No. The interview should have been about Kamala Harris, but no, she got to ask Tim something because he's sitting there. And I bet you she was only willing to agree to the interview if Tim would be present with her. What does that tell you, folks? Do you guys really believe? And I'm a Black female, so you can't point to me and say Sabby is being misogynist, Sabby is being racist towards Kamala. You can't do that with me, bud. So don't try that. Do you guys really feel that Kamala Harris is ready to be president of the United States? Because I'm not getting that impression. We'll go on a little bit more here.
Of politicking here.
Yeah,
Audie.
I mean, interviews, they can be combat, they can be a conversation. And what she needed to do was communicate. And so often in the past, she comes to an interview in a way prepared to be the interrogator. And people already know she's good at asking sharp, tough questions of people who she feels deserve scrutiny. It's her being under that scrutiny that has been where the stakes have been higher. And I think today it did show that she has the ability to sit down and have that back and forth that Republicans are talking about. Can she really do it? So how many more times? I don't know how much that matters. And I do get a little nervous that in the media we're preoccupied with how much access, how many conversations is she going to have in the settings we deem most valuable to voters, when this is a campaign that is actually making a mark in an interesting way, reaching out to people directly.
But Assad, you have also spent a couple of times now interviewing her. What did you make of how she handled it? I mean, to David's point, a little bit more comfortable now than she has been in the past?
Yeah, I think there's been a consistent story of growth. She's been in more of these settings. I think we saw that somewhat tonight. I also think to the question about how policy positions have changed, they were clearly ready with an answer about how the values have been consistent. For me, and one of the lines that stuck out was, "This is a new. I think people are ready for a new way forward." She said that a couple times. It goes to David's point. I don't think there's a policy separation that they've created with Biden. Obviously, she gave a kind of personal defense of him, but they're also very clearly trying to position her as a change candidate in the same way that Donald Trump is positioning himself as a change candidate. In some ways,
how are you a change candidate if her policies are not going to be different from Biden? He just said so himself. How are you a change candidate? How are you a change candidate if you are basically moving yourself to the center, actually center right, similar to what Obama said that he was? How are you a change candidate if that's what you're doing? There is no change. There is no change. So people, stop calling Kamala progressive. She told you so tonight. She's going to give weapons to Israel. So Israel is going to continue to kill Palestinian people. If you care about that issue, you need to know what Kamala said here tonight herself in the interview. So she's not different on Israel. Not that Joe Biden. She's not. She's not different when it comes to climate. She's telling you fracking is okay. Now, when Republicans were saying that, Democrats had a problem with it and say, "Oh my God, you're going to ruin the world." But now it's okay for Kamala to say it because she's on your team, because she's a Democrat. What is happening here? All these people that said Joe Biden moved further to the left. No, the Democratic Party moved further to the right. This is no different. She is a female Barack Obama. She even wore the tan suit.
it feels as if that's going to be the crux of what this comes down to in November, is whether that is bought by the electorate or not.
And interestingly, there is some polling to suggest that it's a battle right now. It's actually a live ball.
It seems that that's where this might live and die. But I think it's really interesting, because for someone who doesn't want to talk about race and gender, who doesn't want to kind of put that identity forward, it is allowing her to make the case of change without kind of saying those words. And so I thought that was really in the air of this speech. But to the point about normal versus weird, the future versus past dichotomy that they're trying to create, I think they landed that tonight. I think they want to present them as a package that is relatable to people, and that is someone you feel familiar, whose story is familiar, whose message is familiar and relatable. And I think that's something that she's grown in, and we saw that this evening.
Interesting. Ashley?
So I think I would break this down into 3 parts: values, vision, and her voice. And I think she made it very clear that she is still committed to her values, to be an American, to be a prosecutor, even though she may have changed on some positions. And she clearly outlined where she had changed. I think on the vision, she attempted to draw the contrast without talking about Donald Trump, but still being very clear and not berating her current boss, actually. And when you think about the opposite ticket of J.D. Vance, where Donald Trump's vice president isn't even on the ticket anymore, we don't need to go down why that is the case. But she...
Again, Ashley Allison, former Obama White House staff member. You need to know who the people are that they bring on for these panels. These are not your everyday people.
Was clearly able to draw her vision for how she wants to take the country forward with her opportunity economy, and then her voice. I think so many Americans want to know, who is she and does she have command of her voice? And she answered every question. Now, you might not like the way she answered them, but she answered them as a capable, qualified leader. And I do.
That's the bare minimum. Answering the questions, that's the bare minimum. Well, she answered every question, so she showed people that she has a voice. I mean, that's the bare minimum. Come on, you answer every question in a job interview. Any of you ever had a job interview, you answer those questions too. That's the bare minimum. This is really sad, man. I'm really concerned for this country.
I think she moved the ball forward a little bit. You know, maybe she didn't score a touchdown tonight, but she definitely moved down the field.
All right, Scott.
I agree with Ested about this idea of the question of who's going to change will be the fundamental defining question of the election. And I was sort of watching this, you know, holistically. What is she saying? What does she look like? What's on the screen? So at the beginning, when she's talking about Biden and their record, our screen said, this is called the Chiron, the headline at the bottom. It said, Harris stands by Biden administration economic record. She is making it clear that she will embrace and be a continuation of Biden's economic policy, his record, what they've done. She offered no remorse, no regrets, no introspection about anything they've done. She continued to blame inflation on this fantasy price gouging idea. She had no additional thoughts on the economic situation in the country or what they've done beyond just saying, Joe Biden and I have done a great job. Now, if I were the Trump people, I would be salivating over the idea that that's how they are going to run the race. I don't believe it's tenable. I also thought it was interesting that she didn't take any responsibility at the end for telling the American people that Joe Biden was fine and he was strong. When we all know that's not true. That's why he's out of the race, and she's still standing by the idea that he was fine and he's strong and that he's fine today. Nobody believes that, and I just think at some point, then why isn't he running?
Because he's too old, point blank. Same reason why Donald Trump probably shouldn't be running, because he's too old and out of touch.
I think most Americans know the truth, and when you're running to be president and you're willing to look them in the face and tell them something they know that you know is not true, it does speak a little bit to your character.
Scott.
We'll go ahead and wrap that up there and go to the last story, because I want to say I usually don't agree with Scott Jennings, especially when it comes to foreign policy, because he also peddles some lies there about Israel and Gaza. But I think he's correct there. I mean, for Kamala Harris to sit up there and tell people that she doesn't think that she's really going to do anything different economically than Joe Biden, then we're in trouble. We're in trouble. And let's see where that trouble will lead us.